everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this program of the Venezuelan American Association of the United States, also known as VAAUS. I am Michael Skoll, president of VAAUS. I would like to welcome all of you to today's conversation about the immigration crisis in New York. Our webinar features Jesus Aguais, founder and president of Aid for Life and Aid for AIDS. We are grateful to Jesus for taking his time to be with us and participate in this discussion. We are also grateful for your participation today and your support of VAAUS in these difficult times for Venezuela and New York. A reminder that VAAUS began 87 years ago as a kind of binational chamber of commerce, but today we are an organization joined in the fight for a return to democracy, decency, and human rights in Venezuela. Now that the Biden administration is retreating from support for democracy there, our struggle, frankly, has become even more difficult. The collapse of Venezuela has contributed to the most significant migration crisis in the hemisphere's history. In New York, over 120,000 asylum seekers have arrived since 2022. A large percentage of them Venezuelan. New York City is the media's epicenter of the crisis, but other places like Massachusetts, for example, have also suffered from their self-identification as, quote, sanctuary, unquote, cities or states. In New York City, an estimated 64,000 people are currently being housed in 210 emergency shelters and 17 humanitarian response centers, all funded by the city of New York. A considerable burden for taxpayers, for law enforcement, and for others seeking help from the city. Aid for Life, AFL, and Aid for AIDS, AFA, began responding to the migration crisis in July 2022 and have provided over 20,000 asylum seekers with humanitarian relief, among other services. Now, we hope you read the New York Times article about Aid for Life's and Aid for AIDS work with the migrants that was sent yesterday with our latest invitation. It shows in very personal terms the high quality of the work being done. Our speaker, Jesus Aguais, is a change maker and social innovator focused on the health and well-being of vulnerable populations across the globe. As founder and president of two international nonprofit organizations, again, Aid for AIDS and Aid for Life, Jesus leads the efforts to develop innovative strategies to provide access to medicine, healthcare, and basic services to refugees and migrants. Our VAAUS associates, Sebastian Lopez, will join me as co-moderator of this program. A high school student, he has been volunteering with Aid for Life and has firsthand experience. Since our program will conclude with a Q&A session, you may write questions at any time using the Q&A button at the bottom of this page, and we will respond to as many as possible. We ask media representatives attending to give credit to VAAUS, as well as the speaker, of course, in any coverage of this programs. Okay, Jesus, your turn. Please tell us about your work. Is the November 11 New York Times article a good summary of what you were doing?
First of all, thank you so much, Michael, and thank you for everybody at VAAUS for the invitation. I'm very happy we can have this conversation about the asylum seekers crisis in New York City, especially affecting Venezuelans. Yeah, the New York Times article, I was very pleased, but it's not a summary of what we do. So let me tell you a little bit about our story. So we were founded in New York City back in 1996, in the midst of the AIDS crisis. That's when Aid for AIDS was born with a HIV medicine redistribution program. So we started collecting surplus in 1990s, surplus of HIV medicine. That's when the protease inhibitor, the cocktail HIV treatment came out, and 2 treatments came out the same year. We started collecting it and sending it to South America. And that became the largest HIV medicine redistribution program. As of today, we have supported over 20,000 people with HIV treatment in 75 low and middle income countries around the globe, and also immigrants in developed countries. And in 1998, we founded the New York City Immigrant AIDS Link due to the large migration that was coming from South America searching for treatment. And in the first 10 years of the program, we supported over 10,000 newly arrived immigrants, including not only access to treatment, but legal services. That year, many came from Venezuela and South America, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, searching to survive. And they were asking for political asylum, most of them based on sexual orientation and HIV status. So our journey continued, and the year 2000, we already expanded in South America. At that point, we already had a site in Venezuela, in Peru, Dominican Republic. And we started with a new program. We realized that to deal with HIV stigma, we needed to educate people, how to help people with HIV do better by searching for, better treatment. And we designed a program that included HIV education, included a program, a linguistic program. It's called neurolinguistic programming, which is assertive communication, and the development of life skills. Life skills as how do you develop critical thinking? How do you develop reflective thinking, creative thinking? And by the critical thinking, and help people to actually make better choices. And something that I started focusing on prevention for high schoolers, it became an empowerment model that has reached over 2 million people in 9 countries, 11 cities. And so we continue to grow and expand. We go now to 2017, and because of our rooted relationship with the communities in South America and around the world, especially communities with HIV, and we got a call from the National Network of People with HIV in Venezuela asking us for support. In 2017, the humanitarian emergency, the complex humanitarian emergency in Venezuela was, in that critical moment, and they wanted us to support them getting HIV treatment because the country was literally getting to the point where there was no more HIV medicine. At that moment, we, started contacting all our networks around the globe, and in 2018, we were able to create a strong network that included pharmaceutical companies, included UNAIDS. We became members of the United Nations Humanitarian Response Depot, which is based in Panama. Thus, the humanitarian warehouses of the United Nations is run by the World Food Program, and you can become a member. AID4AIDS became the 88th members of the UNHRD. And through that route, we were able to support in 2018, 35,000 people with HIV in Venezuela. But that same year, we realized that there were many babies from women with HIV that these women were not taking HIV medicine and they couldn't get, mother-to-child transmission. So we started providing baby formulas. And through providing formulas, at the beginning was women with HIV, we found the difficult and very horrible situation of the health of women that could actually not breastfeed. So at that moment, when we started giving baby formulas to other women with other health conditions, we decided that we needed to expand our mission, and we opened AID4Life. So in 2018 is when AID4Life is actually born, and we supported around 3,000 babies a year from the moment they were born, and for the first 12 months of their life, just to assure not only that they don't get HIV through their mothers, but for those women that have nothing to do with HIV, that they could actually develop their cognitive abilities, because the 12 month of life is when the brain grows the most and is critical for the cognitive development. So A for Life is born. We continue our work in New York until now, 2022, July 2022, Governor Abbott starts busing people to New York City. We get a call from the mayor's office because they knew that we've been working with Venezuelans for a very long time. And Venezuelans were one of the largest migration that started coming since July 2022. And ever since, we developed a program, including a Saturday's event. And we have supported over 20,000 immigrants, 51% of them Venezuelans, with basic needs, humanitarian aid, as clothing, shoes, hot meals, but also with legal services, referrals, and mental health, and so much more. And now we became a big voice on this crisis that is very challenging for everybody. But the way we look at it is also a big opportunity for New York City.
Well, thank you. That's very, very interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about the talents, the experience that these Venezuelan, in particular, immigrants bring with them to New York?
Well, it's all kinds of talents, but let me tell you how we learn about the talent. So since July 2022, we started, as we call it, Saturday's Jornadas. It's Saturday's long day events where we welcome asylum seekers. But the first step is they have to go through an intake process. And through that intake process, we get to know who they are. And we ask them many questions, including what do they do, level of education, what was their work. And there we found that around 30% of the people that comes have a college degree. Like 60% of the people already have some kind of, their technical work, whether they're barbers, they are hairdressers, they are plumbers, they in construction. There is around 30% of minors. And so that's how we actually know what they do. And from the get-go, from July 2022, we knew, and that's because of our experience with HIV. HIV was famous for peer-to-peer counseling, peer-to-peer involvement. Those that already, were okay with a health condition, they could support somebody else. So from the get-go, we started integrating asylum seekers into becoming volunteers. So soon enough, by September 2022, we already have same asylum seekers helping others from the moment they arrived, and they became a little bit of a peer with more experience. And up until now, we have many volunteers that already feel experienced, already created a network where they can actually help each other to find a job. And also, we have become the source of information where they can actually lead to a better way of living.
Okay. Can I briefly ask, you touched on this idea of the jornadas every Saturday. Can you explain to us what specifically happens in these jornadas?
Yeah, that's a good question, Sebastian, and thank you because you've been there. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So this is a large event where we get every weekend. From the least people we get is probably 200 to one weekend we got almost 1,000. We don't really know, but it's never less than 200 people. And usually 70% of the people that arrive on Saturday has arrived within that month. And so what happened there is, first, they go through the intake process, which is the key. That's the way we can actually go back to them. We gather the information. And once they gather the information, they go through the tables. So we give them clothing, whether it's, summer clothing, winter clothing, and shoes, if we have it, because it's also a huge challenge. We live off donation, and it is, I mean, it's a miracle, to be honest with you, how every Saturday all the tables are, full of clothing and shoes. We need more. But anyway, they go through that. And then we were able to secure a grant where we actually buy hot meals. We buy it from a Dominican restaurant and here in the Lower East Side. And they get rice and beans. It's culturally connected meals. And for them, that meal, for many of them, it becomes the biggest, the healthiest meal of the week, due to the fact that in the shelter system, people get frozen meals. So also they go and eat, and part of the involving the talented immigrants, we have barbershop run by newly arrived immigrants for newly arrived immigrants, so they can get haircuts. And so it's a sense of community. And I invite everybody here. You can come Saturday. We partner with the Department of Education. It's a public school in the Lower East Side. It's Anna Silver, PS20 on 166 S Street. And it's really remarkable. This is what's happening now. What had happened is the first step on their integration process. And what it became just a reactive program in July 2022, it became a program that is here to stay. And I can tell you more what the plan of it is and where we're going with this.
Let me turn back to Sebastian. Sebastian, in addition to your work with VAUS, you are an active volunteer in this program. What has it been like for you?
It's definitely been a very interesting experience. It's very every single Saturday I come, well, not every single, but a lot of Saturdays I come in and I work in the intake, which I think is a very interesting part of the jornada process, where you bring people in who, most of them, like he said, had recently just arrived in the country, at least like a month beforehand. I once got someone who arrived in the country 3 days before they came, which is very interesting. And they come to you and you sit down with them and you ask these questions. What did you do beforehand? Do you have, how many children do you have? You ask about their family, but then sometimes they'll give you tidbits about their story, how they got to the United States. The majority of the people have come from wherever they're from in South America, like Ecuador or Colombia, and they come by land and they cross the border. Very little migrants come by plane or by ship. They mostly come over land. And so that means that's a process of going through not dozens, but many countries, like Costa Rica, Nicaragua, a bunch of countries, through an overland route all the way to the United States. So it's very interesting, the journey that they take to come and arrive at that location in Andover school. And I think it's a really interesting part of the immigrant experience here.
Yeah, and let me add to that, and Sebastian is absolutely right. 90% of the people that come to our Saturday's jornadas has crossed the Darien Gap. And the Darien Gap, which is the jungle between Colombia and Panama. And the rest also crossed the south border of the United States, but they had flown to Mexico. That's a lot of Peruvians or some Colombians. They just take a plane. All of Ecuadorians and Venezuelans, 100%, they all cross the Darien Gap.
Except that Nicaragua is now welcoming flights from Venezuela with Venezuelans. That's a new political development.
Right, but we haven't seen any evidence that people flying to Nicaragua yet to continue walking. Usually, the people that has a passport, they have a different experience, but we'll be in the watch out. It'll be interesting to see if people are going to use that. We've seen that route with Cubans. Cubans fly to Nicaragua and then walk up, and they cross the south border of the United States. And some African countries Russians has gone to Nicaragua and then cross and continue walking. There's many nationalities that comes to the United States, to New York right now. And Venezuelans continue to be the largest number, but there's many nationalities, many African countries. The migration route is fascinating because a lot of African countries, what they do, they fly to Brazil, or they fly to Ecuador, because those are some of the few countries that don't ask them for visas, and then they come up and they cross the Darien Gap and do the whole journey.
Jesus, you have used the phrase, the concept of integration, meaning the integration of these mostly Venezuelan migrants into the U.S. economy. Now, how do you explain that, and how will that be done legally?
Well, integration is it. I mean, what we're going through right now, this immigration crisis has a lot of similarities with Ellis Island. It's just people that came through Ellis Island, coming from Europe. The poor people were coming on the bottom of the boat. Many died on the journey. They were faced discrimination, and they were sent back because of some whatever reason. But at the end of the day, they have a community and they actually integrated. You know, a lot of those people forgot that they came through their, heritage come from Ellis Island, and they see this migration as a threat, which is actually, it's the same thing that has happened for the past 200 years or more.
But
those
there
that has continued to,
there is a real difference legally in terms of immigration
let me get there.
From the Ellis Island.
Right, but this is also these people that are arriving. For some reason, we call them asylum seekers. Asylum seekers, because all of them, whether or not they have an asylum claim, all of them can apply for asylum. Now, Venezuelans who arrive in New York and in the US before July 31st, 2023, can also apply for TPS. So all of them can apply. So it is a lot of similarities. There was faster. Here, unfortunately, it's case by case. So in order for us to reach to this integration process, it has different phases. And the first phase is something that we have done. So far, we have supported almost 2,000 individuals in their asylum process and in the TPS process. And we continue engaging into supporting people through education, basic education, to understand what is the asylum process, what is the asylum claim. What we had found is Venezuelans, even Ecuadorians, they have normalized persecution. For instance, if they get the bag of basic meals that they get from the government, la caja clamp, I don't even know how they call it because I've been in New York for too long, but that, and they get banned because they have a different view of whatever it is, and they actually were threatened, and their life got threatened, and some people have to move and all that. We had found that other families has applied for asylum. When they hear from those families, they say, well, that same thing happens to me. It's because when they took the journey of crossing the Darien Gap and arriving the south border of the United States and being bused to New York City, they don't have their asylum claim as priority. What they want is to work to provide for themselves. So we learned that the first step on this integration process is helping them understand that they have a huge opportunity to do it legally. So we need to make sure that we make as many of those possible to apply for asylum, and now Venezuelans to apply for TPS. So that's the first step, and that's exactly what we're doing. Then the next step also is understanding their emotional need. This is a journey of trauma, whether they were a Venezuelan that came from Chile, from Peru, from Ecuador, Colombia, or from Venezuela itself. The journey is a traumatic journey. Arriving in a city is a traumatic city. These are families that come, so we address the social emotional. We look at the workforce development by understanding, getting the data that we collect in our intake form on how do we guide them, right? So then later is learning English and so forth. So what we are aiming to do is to have the first New York City integration center focusing in Venezuelans and perhaps other South Americans, where we can have this integration in an organized manner to avoid adding the number of illegal immigrants to the 12 and so million illegal immigrants that has been undocumented for the past, almost 37 years, those that did not apply in 1986 in the last time, there was an opportunity to become legal. So we very, very focused on this population, and we believe, and we've seen it already. In fact, if we can share with you, we did our first legal event June 24th this year. And on October 25th, a family of 6 from Venezuela who came from Chile, they got granted asylum in 4 months. And it was such a big deal that NBC covered it, Telemundo covered it. If you go to our Instagram page at A for Life, you would see the report. So we've seen it possible to, and it was very also interesting that this couple, Venezuelan couple, who came from Chile, who crossed the Darien Gap with a baby, with a 3-month baby, who almost died crossing the Darien Gap. When they arrived and they talked to other people, they said, you don't have a claim. We took the claim, we took the case, they got granted. And now that has become a flag to telling asylum seekers, do apply, do get informed, do understand your own story. What you think is normal is an asylum claim. Persecution cannot be normalized. And persecution in Venezuela comes in different forms.
Now, do you think that what you are doing will result in more Venezuelans coming to the United States because they see a better opportunity for asylum?
Well, maybe once my model is already replicated in many cities, but it's too early for them to see it. I just can't focus on the crisis. This is a very complex crisis that requires leadership with a comprehensive understanding of it. And I mean, I cannot doubt. So I turn my eyes into what I can do to integrate those that are here now. And we've been quite successful, but we can do more. I mean, like, we still don't have this, on space to run an integration center and to call it integration center. This is something that, as somebody, many private donors can have. I'm happy to put the name of whoever donor to that building. First, New York City Integration Center, focus in Venezuelan immigrants. And we can even add it to Colombians and Ecuadorians and Peruvians. But the beauty of it, that Colombians, Ecuadorians, and Peruvians that are more established. Venezuelans is unique when it comes to South American immigrants, because Venezuelans are the orphans of the newly arrived immigrants here. Why they're orphans? Because Venezuelans, as you know, don't have, or the US don't have any diplomatic relationship with Venezuelans. Is Ecuadorians arrive in New York, or Peruvians arrive, Colombians arrive in New York, and they lose their passport, they lose their ID card from the country. All they need to do once they arrive here, it goes to the General Counsel. They would get a passport from Colombia, Ecuador, Peru. And with that passport, they can get an ID from the city ID. And with that ID, they can open a bank account. Venezuelans cannot. So Venezuelans need special attention. And that has nothing to do with telling Venezuelans come to New York because it's going to be a better life. So this is not a political thing. This is not a green or not a green. They're already here. And it's in all our best interest to invest on this community so they can be integrated in a healthy, organized way, so they can actually be activated and be included in the economic, social, and even political ecosystem in the city. I already see these people our numbers tell us that over, at one point they said 3,000. Now somebody is questioning the number, but I would say close to 3,000 Venezuelan babies have been born in New York from asylum seekers. We have the number of Venezuelan New Yorkers is increasing tremendously. In New York City, in 15 years, 20 years from now, we will have more political power because these people will get into, many offices and run for office. So it's our vision to make sure that the Venezuelan community in New York City this path is actually designed and in an organized manner so we can impact positively more and more people.
You touched briefly on the replication of the model that's been very successful in New York City. What are AIDS for Life's plans on bringing what you've done to New York, maybe to other cities that you've touched on, maybe like Chicago or other cities with migrant issues?
Well, let's stay focused in Venezuelans. We estimate that around 70 or 80,000 Venezuelans are in New York City since July 2022. And New York City Integration Center has to be replicated throughout the 5 boroughs to begin with, because no one center will be able to reach the amount of Venezuelans that are in need here. But when that model is proven, which I'm humble enough to say, let's continue proving it, because this first phase is already proven a great success. We can also replicate it in different cities, but not only Venezuelans. This is a model that we can replicate for other cultures. We believe, and the success of our program is the fact that we culturally connected. The success of our legal program is the fact that we work with Venezuelan lawyers and Venezuelan paralegals. When you come to our legal jornadas, our legal events, there's 25 Venezuelan paralegals that are working not only with Venezuela, with a lot of Venezuelans. So the asylum application is so smooth. We prepare people twice a week in our office with Venezuelan paralegals. So when they get to that moment to apply for asylum, the whole process is very smooth because they speak the same language. And the same language is they speak Venezolano, if you know what I mean. They understand the nature of the issue. And that's a model that could be replicated to other cultures. And that's a model we can replicate in other cities, especially places like Illinois, Chicago, places that they have a history of a Venezuelan, getting there, which is all over the United States.
Are you planning to expand to other places in the U.S. like Cape Cod, where I'm sitting right now?
I go to Cape Cod. You tell me and I go. I think the most important thing is how, we all can get involved. This is a good investment. This is good for all of us as Venezuelans who's been here for many, many years. This is something that we can do in a very organized manner. We will have to talk about what would be the Venezuelan neighborhood in New York City. Can we bring investment to design a Venezuelan neighborhood in New York? Can we meet with City Hall and said, this is what we're going to build. This is going to be the Washington Heights of Venezuela. This is going to be the Jackson Heights of Venezuelans. These Venezuelan community are here to stay. And I believe I have a responsibility to make sure that their journey is not a chaotic one, that we're going to avoid people because they could not, get legalized because they didn't know how to apply for asylum and they didn't know how to navigate the system. They ended up, undocumented, or because they didn't know how to legalize their documents, how to get a job with what an experts and they good to do, they're going to end up in public assistance. I believe we can do it, and we already doing it, and we can do it in a larger scale.
Do you get a complete cooperation from the city of New York?
Well, what that complete means. I'm just kidding. Yeah, getting complete from the city is a question. But yes, we part of the navigation center from the get-go. We work with the mayor. We work with the commissioner of immigration affairs. We get some funding, not enough, and to provide services. For instance, we got a grant of $100,000 the first year, and with that, we supported like 8,000 asylum seekers, and we really stretch every penny. And it's not enough. We're searching for money to expand our legal program and getting more asylum seekers to apply for asylum. I already explained it, what is the first step. We also looking at how do we develop models, business models, where they can become individual entrepreneurs, or how can we help them, guide them for them to, get there. If you are a nurse, what's the step for you to actually get your nurse license? Do you need to go to school? But if you are an engineer, how do you get your engineer diploma? What are the steps that you need to take? Lawyers, I have right now, this guy is 28 years old, a lawyer from Venezuela, and learning English. What's the next step? Getting their title. At least it's what are those steps for him to actually go to law school here? So the business part. I mean, we have enough Venezuelans barbers in New York right now that Venezuelan barbers can compete with Russian and Dominican barbers in the city. We have so many beauty, into the beauty business, nails, hairstylists, that we can compete with the Chinese and Koreans on the nail salon. That's the amount of Venezuelans we have here. But it's up to us to be able to plan that path and make sure that they become active in this economic ecosystem faster than or that what we want,
Quickly, I'd just like to remind everyone in the webinar that you're fully invited to put some questions into the Q&A section for a chance that one of us can answer them. And on that strain of thought, we have a question that how do you raise funding for what you are doing helping migrants?
Wow. Right now, all the funding, it's coming from the city or the state or private foundations. And it's a challenge. Yeah, but it's all grants, we have got money from Robin Hood Foundation. We got some funding actually from the Simon Bolivar Foundation. And thanks to the Simon Bolivar Foundation, we actually buy the food and to give to asylum seekers. Although that funding is already at the end, but they don't 2 cycles of funding, and we get money from the city. But also it's yeah, I mean, funding is what we need. I mean, we need a lot of funding. We don't have enough. We don't have near enough funding, and that's the challenge for organizations like ours, is the funding, because we don't produce our own funding.
Okay, let me remind people that if you want to ask a question, click the Q&A button, and we'll get to as many as possible. Here's one from Ana Grisanti. How do we sign up to be a volunteer on Saturdays?
I guess we can send out an email, and yeah, you can volunteer, and you also can help us collect clothes and shoes. Like, for instance, we're planning an event. We're gonna turn into a Christmas event on Saturday, December 16th. And we hope to get, toys for kids, but new toys, right? And new shoes, perhaps new clothing. And Venezuelans, they have some things called los estrenos. They have to wear new clothes on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. So we hope we can actually do that. We have a need of strollers and a lot of new babies, tons of new babies, baby clothing. So you can also spread the word and trying to help us, with that.
Yeah, on that topic, how can the general public get involved in Aid for Life and Aid for AIDS?
Well, I think the first thing is helping us connect with funding. We need money. We need a lot of money to implement a program like this, like the integration center, only the integration center that includes legal. We need to hire lawyers. We need to hire paralegals. We need to hire professionals to do this. That's how organizations work. And in order to do that, we need funding. And also funding would allow us to also continue with, the workforce development program. And so whether it's the individual that is listening or the network, sometimes the network is what actually can bring more support. You're welcome to call me. I can, tell you individually and more in deep of what are needs. But you can become a volunteer. As we just said, come to our Saturday's event. You will experience firsthand what I'm telling you. You can come to our office. We're at 131 Varick Street. We do legal events twice a week. Sometimes you get to interact with asylum seekers, which I invite everybody to do. And asylum seekers have taught me so many things. I have learned about the deep Venezuelan issues, how these past 24 years has impacted the basics of our country. Understand why they're here, how human they are, and they all have a dream. I mean, there is a perception that asylum seekers or immigrants are here just because they have nothing else to do, or that it was easy. And the bad behavior has been highlighted in social media. But when you get to know them, they are the result of an abandoned community. And like, for instance, this is a very young, very, very young migration. I think average is probably 24 years old, and a lot of young people. So that's people that are only knew the Maduro regime and the Chavez regime. But they're here, they want that opportunity. And I think by volunteering, by getting to know them, that alone, by listening to them, is a way to give them that opportunity. When we recognize them, it's the door that we open, that they can actually find a way out of what they feel is such a dark thing, because they don't know exactly where they're still going.
Okay, here's one from Maria Terran. Great program. Thank you so much. Jesus, are you connected with the Tent Partnership for Refugees founded by Chobani's founder?
Yeah, I know. They actually do great work in Colombia. Their model started in the Middle East. They connect refugees professionals with corporations. We have a meeting with them. I met with them for a couple of times, but our people are not there yet, because once we refer to Tent, that is when we already know that professional can actually get a job. So we're on the path, and they're definitely an amazing partner. And we're talking today to them for other reasons. Hopefully we can actually get more asylum seekers to connect with them. They're amazing.
Okay, here's one from Claudia Serwer. I don't see how your program can avoid encouraging more migrants to come to the U.S. I live in a state which is not only a sanctuary state, it is a right to shelter state. Migrants who come here by law get housing, food through SNAP program, old food stamp program, and medical care. And frankly, our resources are depleting quickly. In fact, people of limited resource who have legal status have been thrown out of affordable housing because landlords have learned that the government will pay more for migrants than these individuals can afford. And all this largesse comes from the taxpayer.
Well, that's a good point, and I see that. But for us, first of all, I don't know which states. You can tell me which state that is happening, but that's not happening in New York.
Massachusetts.
So in Massachusetts, well, I mean, we'd love to learn more about it. But in New York City, we can ignore these people and make sure that we don't do anything, and that will have consequences. So what we do is not because we want to incentivize anybody. First of all, what we do is not large enough to incentivize anything. But if we don't do anything, it's going to affect us all of us in New York City. We can count how many people we can help them get asylum, get a job, get out of the shelter system, support for themselves. That is a winning. We have nothing to do with immigration. We just want to make sure that those people that are already here, they have a path organized for the integration process. So they actually can start paying taxes. They actually can get out of the shelter system fast enough. And they can actually add their talent to the New York City economy. So it might seem like, we're doing it for other reasons. No, we're doing it because I think it's the right thing to do. Ignoring it, it won't take the problem away. It would actually make it really, really bad.
Here's one from Carlos Lopez, whoever he is. Where can people drop clothes for migrants?
You can drop it off. The best place is at our office. It's at 131 Varick Street, Suite 1006. And we can actually email everybody the information. And that would be Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And you can reach out to us. We can arrange things depending on the large donation.
Okay, we will send out an email with that information. Gabriela Terran asks, what are your priorities for 2024?
Our priorities is to open the first asylum integration center in New York City. And that's for us priority. And the integration NYC is the next step of our Saturdays Jornadas. And we're looking into places, inviting funders to join us. And it's because the number is already too large. We already have a lot of people that we already supported, and the program is so much needed. And that's our priority. So we in the fundraising mode and talking to everybody, including the city of New York. So hopefully I answer your question.
Very good. Here's one again from Maria Terran. It's not a question, it's a response to your response to her earlier question. She says, great. So there you have it. Do you have, Jesus, do you have any final comments, any kind of summary that you want to give us?
Well, I would say, regardless of your feeling with the immigration and crisis that is not only affecting New York, and especially Venezuelans, I want to focus on Venezuelans. This is not a political issue. This is a human issue. We have the opportunity to make this less painful, to have this with tons of success stories, or we can ignore it and let our own people become even more chaotic. We already have a year and a half of success that could be replicated. You could be part of our success. And the success is measured by human life. The success will be measured by individuals who can provide for themselves, provide for their family, and provide for the city, whether it's New York City, whether it's Boston, any town in Massachusetts, any town in Illinois. We're writing history. This never happened. So we can jump in the wagon of success on planning, or we can ignore it, and we're all gonna feel it. What we're going through is a historic moment. we can talk in 20 years with our grandchildren, our kids, of what we did to make sure that the Venezuelans were integrated in the best way possible, or we won't have anything to say because our people, we don't even know where they're going to be. We are part of the change, and that's the invitation. Join us to make that change happen.
Sebastian, do you have any final comments?
Yes. Well, I think that the issue with the Venezuelans, something that happens all over the country. And I really just want to reiterate what's been said. These people need help, and primarily through one source, which I think is funding. And so any way that you can help AIDS for Life, especially volunteering what I do, is very helpful, and just try to help in any way that you can.
Okay, thank you. There's one more question which has just appeared from Andres Riedman. How can members of the Venezuelan American community outside of New York help? I think I know.
Get involved, reach out. I mean, like, look, it's the same thing. I mean, they can help if you have, a network with companies that donate to nonprofit is tax deductible, all the financial support. If you can, a corporation that donates clothing, they don't have to be in New York. And actually, by helping us establish our model would allow us also for us to focus in other communities outside New York. So that's why, our priority is to establish this first pilot, integration center in New York City, where we can start replicating it abroad. Stay connected, reach out to me directly. I have my colleague, my director of operations, Alicia Molina, she's here also. I can bring part of my team. You can visit us at our office. I'm happy to meet up with you and get into the detail of the program and figure it out together how you can actually support.
Very good. Okay, Carlos, on to you.
Jesus, I really want to thank you for what you're doing for Venezuelans in the US. I mean, it's remarkable. As you said, it's not a political problem. It's not a political issue, the immigration problem, but it has political roots, and that's why VAUS has been for the last few years making sure that people are aware of the political problems in Venezuela. You are addressing the consequences, and we thank you for doing that. It's remarkable. I know you started with AID many years ago. You moved into Aid for Life. I mean, it's just, there's not enough words to say thank you for what you're doing. And hopefully, we believe this in VAUS, we believe the solution to these problems is bringing democracy to Venezuela. And I know you're not a political institution, so this is on our behalf. I mean, Venezuela has to improve in the future. And that's where like VAUS and Aid for Life are together. I mean, finding better path for Venezuelans there and here. Same as you, we also depend on donations. VAUS depends. I mean, and it's a lot more difficult nowadays that corporates are not interested in Venezuela as much as they were in the past. Please do help VAUS, help Aid for Life. There, I mean, we are non-for-profit. We help people, and we try to bring awareness to problems to try to bring solutions in the medium term. I'd like to thank also Michael and Sebastian for moderating today. Alicia, of course, Linda Calvet, our secretary, Lori, also in our team for preparing the logistics today. VAUS is working on future programs. We'll let you know as soon as they're confirmed. We usually have like a monthly webinar like this, sometimes even more than one per month. The Andean American Association is going to be hosting our annual outlook for the coming year very soon. An invitation will follow to everybody. If people are interested in joining the Venezuelan American Association, please contact us in our website or via today's invitation. I mean, as we said, like we depend on people like the ones who participated today, and they make membership from everybody make our work possible. Thank you all, and Jesus, again, thank you very much for helping people in Venezuela. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.